wing it.
You're well versed. You're ready to go. So let's get in there, Dave. It's great to meet you. Thank you so much for taking a minute out today. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Joe. Good to meet you and happy to be here.
Right on. So let's begin our journey with this. I always start with this question because I think it's something that we just aren't talking about a whole lot, and it's the COVID thing. 6 years ago, it changed the landscape of so many things for all of us globally. How did you get through that era, and how has it changed the way that you approach business and life?
I have been working from my home office since 1993. And that means that it's difficult to find people who will be interns, for example, because I don't want to invite them into my home. So I've had a wonderful chance to use technology from the very beginning to enhance my ability to reach out. As you probably know, I've invested now in 218 early stage companies, and I coach the entrepreneurs of as many of those as I think reasonable. I've been on 40 boards. Today I'm chairman of 5 of them. We sold the 6th in October of last year. And I'm advising 17. So it's a lot, but it's all from my desk. And so when COVID hit, there was really very little change.
So let's get to the heart and soul of what you do with this very busy plate of things that you do. I'm going to put you in front of a 13-year-old group of kids. It's career day. And one of the kids just wants you to boil down your day job. How do you explain what you do for a living?
Well, in past years, I ran as CEO 2 companies, actually 3, 2 of them public. And after 1993, when I left the last of those companies, which is a long time ago, I realized, I also realized that I had never had a coach. And it was something where I had learned so much in those companies, especially the small startups, the fragile startups, that it was time to teach. And so I began writing. The first book that I wrote was in 1994, 1 year later. It was before the word angel had ever been used in early stage investing. So I invented a term. I called myself a resource capitalist. I have no idea. And nobody picked up on it, so it certainly wasn't much. But it was a book that tried to describe what I did. And what I did, I said, were easily understandable in 5 different areas. And one of them was provide the money. That's what everybody expects. The other is to deal with the corporate time, which means not just a personal time of somebody like the CEO, but the core resource of the company, perhaps its development group or the marketing group, and how to deal with that and why. Finding relationships, because I had a great golden Rolodex at the time, and still continue to. It grows. So putting people together with other people, what a great thing to be able to do to save things. Context, teaching them that they may be too early or in the right place at the right time or not, because I've had the experience and see other companies coming to me as well. And then finally process how to get from here to there. Because if they can do something in 6 months that would have taken 12, think of the fixed overhead that's saved.
Yeah.
So that was the theme. I have kept that theme through subsequent books, like Extending the Runway. And that theme I've expanded, and I teach it because it really does, with those 5 things, encapsulate what a small, fragile, young business needs to deal with. So I don't know if I answered your
You
question,
did.
but that's how it started.
You absolutely did. Yeah. And I got all kinds of questions that I want to follow up, but I want to get back to the beginning of your story. When you were at Career Day, what did you want to be when you grew up? What was your dream job?
I wanted to be the CEO of a big public company in a large glass building because back in the 60s, that was the thing. Everybody was building these giant monoliths, and I wanted to be on the top floor of one of those monoliths. That's a little silly, but that's where it was.
So take me back to your beginnings. Where are you originally from?
I am probably 30 miles from where I was born,
Okay.
Los Angeles. And it is, for me, excuse me, a journey that started in high school. In fact, it started at the age of 15 when I built a recording studio in my home bedroom. and began advertising in yellow pages, take you back a long, long way, for cutting records for people that would bring tapes and drop them by my home. And I would charge $5. This is 15 and 16 years old. And I had, with my lawn mowing money, the equipment that I needed to make a 12-inch LP. We called it an acetate at the time. And people would then come back a day later and pick up their record. And at $5 and $1957, that's $28 today. I would earn $28 for doing nothing. Well, almost nothing.
Yes.
And that gave me the idea that maybe there was something there. So by my senior year in high school, I was producing records for the Sounds of the School Year for several schools, and all kinds of things like Christmas concerts and spring sings for UCLA, USC, let's think about that, Cal, Stanford. It goes on, and it put me through college. It paid my entire tuition, room, and board. And so the day after graduation, I rented the dining room of an old house in the middle of Pasadena, California, and bought a desk, and I was full-time. Wow. And never looked back. I went to the Navy for a while there, a 6-month reserve program, and my parents actually ran the company during those 6 months. But coming back, it took 3 years from graduation to have enough money to build a 2-story building and put the recording studio on the first floor along with my office and rent out part of the second floor.
That's amazing.
And there's a story there, if I can tell it.
Sure.
My first tenant was a man named Joe. And Joe managed 8 little tiny, I'll say liquor stores, but they were called grocery stores, called Pronto Markets. And he decided they didn't like the liquor business. He wanted to be in a business that was much closer to where his personal life and ambitions were. So Joe created, down the street about, a mile from a warehouse, a new business called Trader Joe's.
Wow.
So Joe Colomb and I were old friends, and he outgrew it a year or two later. And so he moved back to his home nearby, or his office near his home, and I moved into his office. And I outgrew that a year later and ended up buying a big building in Hollywood, building an entire record pressing plant. And we had, well, here it comes, 4 divisions. First division was these same school and college divisions. Let's call that the Vanity Press. Second division was oldies but goodies. Some people that are watching or listening today will remember KTEL. We were KTEL's greatest competitor. Only our difference was we would put the name of the radio or TV station on the cover, and they would give us 6 weeks' worth of free advertising. Then there was the equipment sales division. We built recording studios and sold equipment to Hollywood artists recording. So it turns out for me that there are stories that are just, I can't tell you enough of them. For instance, last month I received just in an email the fact that there had been a auction. I'm not sure where the auction was, but I had sold some equipment to Frank Sinatra, my company had. And so here was the invoice from my old company to Frank Sinatra, and somebody was auctioning it off.
Oh, wow.
I don't know how much they got for it.
Yeah. That's amazing.
But, many, many stories of that. But it turned out that in 1971, 9 years out of college, I took the company public. And I had a commercial record division, which I didn't mention before, that had some famous artists. Do you remember I Want to Teach the World to Sing, I Want to Buy the World a Coke?
Oh, absolutely.
That was us, millions of those. And do you remember the Limelighters, one of the folk groups of the 60s and 70s?
Yes, I do.
I hired Alex Hazeloff, who was one of the Limelighters, to be my A&R, Artist and Repertoire Director. We hired Glenn Yarborough, the main singer of the Limelighters, and did an album for him. And I hired the president of Liberty UA to be my president. So that was a division of the company, too. And in 1971, 9 years out of college, I told you I took it public, but I also bought the very first mini computer that had a screen. All the rest of them had had teletypes in the past. And so I learned to program it, taught myself to program it, and those programs over the next 3 years became more valuable than the record company. And so the hardware salespeople had nobody else to demonstrate, so they would send their candidates along with, they would visit along with their candidates. I would show them the program. It didn't take long before I got an offer from Occidental Life Insurance for $10,000. That's $56,000 today to lease a tiny little bit, the inventory control part of the program I'd have written, and a food broker for $6,000, which would be about $38,000 today. Well, that was for doing nothing, and you know the rest of that story.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I programmed for 214 businesses in the Southern California area. I just leased parts of my program and then spent a week installing it, or had my programmers spend a week installing it, until the first hotel, number 215. The first hotel, and today it's a Fairmont. It used to be a Sheraton. And they said, sure, we'd like a back office, which is just an accounting system. But now will you give us our reservation system? What? There were only 2 or 3 others in the world at the time. So I had to kind of figure out what was necessary to build reservations and accounting, front office accounting, in a hotel. Did. And that business went, I gave away the 215 customers to my existing programmers so I could concentrate on this. It went from 800,000 in the first year to $1.6 million to $2.4 million to $4.8 million to $12 million to $24 million to $30 million. $30 million, 1978, 9, whatever, dollars would be the same as $100 million today. And then I sold the company back to that hardware company that I had bought that first hardware from.
That's amazing.
And that was the money I used to invest in others. So now you know the whole story.
Yes, that is amazing. So, where did you learn this? Take me back to your beginnings. Were you around entrepreneurs? How did you get this high level of energy and success that has become your career?
Well, I went to a liberal arts college, Occidental College in Los Angeles, and there was a business administration major, but it was really econ. And so I got very, very little, in fact, almost no help at all to run my business. So I really got what I needed, which was critical thinking rather than specific ability to do a job like an accountant. And I'd like to tell everybody listening that that is a great trade. You either go to a community college today for those kinds of skills, or you come to a 4-year college, hopefully a liberal arts college, and you find how to think critically.
Yeah.
And what a difference. And that's what I did. And so I taught myself. I,
So, who's been your hero? Who's been your inspirational force throughout your career?
I'll start with my dad.
Yeah.
We have a family of entrepreneurs and professionals, nobody ever having done anything other than those, as far back as I could tell, and I'm the family historian. And so my dad owned a furniture store in a very busy street that has long been subsumed by USC, which subsumes everything in Los Angeles, but yes. But, I observed, I went down and watched what he did, saw that you can be an entrepreneur even in a retail environment. And as far as the technology, I had taught myself from the beginning. That first office that I had built, the 2-story office building,
Yeah.
I bought a very early, we'll call it a computer, but in those days, there were either mainframes or this, which was a tiny computer that was programmed in machine language.
Yeah.
And it had 12 registers of 12 characters per register, and that's all you could do is move things from one register to another and then command it to print letter by letter. So I taught myself machine language and did accounts receivable.
Wow. So, I'm listening to a book. I keep hearing about the coding and the programming. I'm listening to the biography on Steve Jobs right now. And when
Oh,
you talk about that computer in the early days, you were right there with them, with Wozniak and all of them, figuring out how all of this works.
14 years before. Yeah. So if you think of the ages of technology, mainframes, Watson Sr. saying, as we all remember, there's probably a market for only 5 of these in the world.
Yeah,
Then mini computers, which is where I came in.
yeah,
Excuse me. And then microcomputers is where Wozniak and Jobs came in.
yeah,
And then hosted systems, where something was in the cloud, but something else was on the desktop.
hmm,
And then finally, SaaS systems, where everything was in the cloud.
hmm,
And today, AI, which is anything you want to really define it as.
yeah,
AI today is primarily a way of using those systems to a much better effect than what we had before. So I was in there in that second generation. I give keynotes. One of my keynotes is, there has been a generation, not just of technology in the way we know it, but of technology from the very beginning that changes the world every 55 years.
yeah,
55 years. Think about that one, Joe.
yeah.
So go back to the very first one, which was the Industrial Revolution.
Uh-huh.
Remember the Luddites who said, you better not automate my sewing plant.
Yeah,
And the second one was the beginning of steam railway,
yeah,
so we could begin to travel across the country. And the third one was Ford and the assembly line.
yep,
And the fourth one was the beginnings of, I'll call it mini computer.
yeah,
It was all purpose computing for the people
yeah,
for the first time in the early 70s.
yeah,
We'll add 55 years to 1971, and you're here.
yep.
And what is this generation? You can tell me, Joe.
I mean, it's AI. I think,
Yes.
yeah, it's AI. It's this explosion, and like Moore's law is getting totally thrown out the window. Like the amount of AI duplication every day is blindingly fast.
There it is, the fifth generation.
That's
Can you
it.
believe it?
That's wild.
55 years. And who would have guessed that? So
Yeah,
I gave keynotes and I said, will tech take your job? That was the title for the keynote. That was scare people.
yeah,
And I was telling people in 2016 and 2017 that, if you're an accountant right now, you might consider being an analyst
uh-huh.
instead of just a worker. And if you're a middle manager, you better learn how to do things. Here comes critical thinking again, because it is something that the job of middle management is going to disappear as AI helps people to do their jobs without having somebody looking over their shoulder.
Yeah,
And it's working.
it is. So when you look back in the proverbial rearview mirror of your career and all of the successes and everything that you've gone through, what's the biggest risk that you've taken as an entrepreneur?
It is, without coaching, always about money. And I hate to say that. But if you're trying to start a young business, as the record company was, and we grew immensely fast, and I said to you a while ago, in Hollywood, we built a plant that was wall to wall, able to bring somebody into the recording studio or to give us a tape, and a week later from the same plant, with absolutely never going out of the plant, produce a finished LP. That took a lot of investment.
Yeah,
And so as that company grew, I had to learn, and then later on now I teach, how growth calls for more money, not less, and the reasons for it. And so money is, as one of those 5 things I talked about when we first began, the first thing that people have to worry about. 50% of these fragile young companies will be out of business in 5 years.
yeah,
And why? Either product market fit, they never figured it out, they were engineers and they never did the research, they never tried in front of teacher customers to figure out what it was that they really would resonate with. And they ran out of money, whether they took investment or whether they did it from their own pocket or friends and family. And those businesses, unfortunately, could have been taught how to do something a little differently and win. Which brings us to the book.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. If you were to have a dream tonight, you ran into that young version of you getting ready to build that first business, and you walked into a room right now and had a film projector and hit play, and there was a highlight reel of your life, 60 to 90 seconds long, would that young version of you believe that your life turned out this way?
I've been asked that before, and the answer is yes.
Yeah.
The entrepreneur in me. Let me give you a short story again. So I graduated from college as the top in the econ department, and I won the Wall Street Journal Award, which I'm very proud of. They don't give it anymore, but it was one per university. And so that earned me a interview with the head of the Los Angeles office of McKinsey & Company, the consultants, the best name in consulting. And so I was offered a job on the spot. And I said, let me think about it. Here I was running a record company, and I wanted to, this is right before I rented that office. I wanted to continue the record company. I was a geek. That was my favorite hobby-profession. And so it took me only 24 hours, less than that, to call the guy back and say no. Wow. It was about 20 years later, a little less than 20 years later, the cover of Business Week had 12 pictures of 12 McKinsey people that had become the captains of industry, the presidents of gigantic corporations. And so then you have to ask yourself 20 years later, when the fork in the road, which one you took and what it might have been. Yeah. I'm happy with what I did. That answers your question.
Yeah.
But everybody has a fork in the road.
They certainly do. So, with the Leader's Toolkit and all of these books you're putting out, it's almost like you're putting out the Colonel's recipe. You're telling everybody levels of what you've done in your career, and you're giving. When did you hit that epiphany that you were going to start, like, allowing people to understand how you've worked and how you've achieved success?
That first book in 1994. It was my attempt to teach without really worrying about the revenue that would come as a result. I figured I had to give back. I made a lot of money on selling the computer company, which is a story in itself, because the lesson that I learned was the buyer never revealed why they wanted to close by March 31st of that quarter. Remember, the buyer was that hardware company that I had bought their first computer from. And it turned out that they were about, for the first time as a public company, to have a reduction in gross revenue worldwide in that quarter. But if they bought us, we were their largest reseller and profitable. We could have changed that number if we had been incorporated as part of their business in time. Who knew? I had no idea. But they paid well, and they really pushed to close fast. So I learned, and now I teach, there are three kinds of business buyers. There are the kind that buy for financial reasons. They'll pay something. There are strategic buyers, and they will pay more because they have a reason to. And then there's this new group that I'd never heard of before called the emotional buyer. You got to have this company. Yeah. It's a competitor that's beating you all the time. It's somebody with technology that will get you into the current generation when you weren't there yourself. Whereas this company that's about to, and whoever knew, lose some of its market value if it didn't do this. What a lesson.
Yeah, that is a huge lesson. So when you look back on your career and your life, what are you the happiest about? What are you the proudest of?
The hotel computer company. I invented a piece of software that did things that hadn't been done before. And I was inducted into the Hotel Hall of Fame as a result. And I was very proud of that. And it was nice to do. And, something when I go to trade shows, I still get to wear the ribbon. And it's something. But 3 of my former managers in that company have won that award since. And that has never been duplicated by any other vendor ever. And so what am I most proud of? The fact that I can walk down the aisles of trade shows and people stop me and say, this was the company that was the best company I've ever worked for. Or, Dave, you taught me so much that I was able to become a senior manager in time. Or, wasn't that fun? So, it's the enjoyment of knowing that over those years, I touched some people's lives.
So at the end of the day, let's get to the proverbial fork in the road for your soul. Everyone has a perception of you. Family, friends, clients, everyone that gets your books, everyone that knows you in different capacities, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Coach. Nothing but coach. I don't want anybody to hear this and then say, well, Dave, come on, because I don't charge for it. I don't need the money. It's more of a question right now of helping these entrepreneurs to hopefully not be one of the 50% that fail in 5 years. But I know better. It's something that I can measure. Because if I look at 218 investments that I've made, I have 91 left. 40 some odd, let's say 45, have been sold or gone public, made some real money. And it turns out twice that number have failed. So for me, it's more than 50%, but I'm going back many more years.
Yeah.
That 50% is just the first 5 years. But there are stories, and it's not for this to tell, but just, there are stories when make 1,000%. There was one where I had a 3,000%. And Joe, if you give me time, I'll tell you one story right now.
Please.
Here it comes. So I'm always reviewing opportunities. I had a chief programmer for the hotel computer company named Tom. And Tom wanted to be a marketing person, even though he had 24 programmers working for him, thousands of hotels depending upon him, including what later became 4,200 Marriotts, not at the time, but later. And he said, I want to be a marketing person. And I said, the marketing department is full, Tom, and I really like your ideas, but I just can't do it. So he left me. Now, this is 1990, and I lost touch with him. And in 1995, I've memorized this, and it's actually under glass in my office. I got an email. My email address was AOL.com at the time, so you know how old that is. And it was, here it comes, August 26, 1995. Hello again, Dave. I'm employee number 7 at a Seattle-based internet retail startup called Amazon.com. So Tom had shown up in Seattle as the marketing head for Jeff Bezos. And he described how at 1 o'clock every day, he and the employees, there were only 7 of them, would stop and package the books, put them in the hallway, and then take them to the post office. It was 2 weeks into Amazon. And he said, my founder's in round 2 of capital seeking. That's what he called it. Now, round 1 was Jeff's mom at $300,000.
Yeah.
And so round 2 of capital seeking, and if I had the $100,000, and he described himself as being very conservative, so this is unusual for him to say, I would certainly do it. I'd like to introduce you to Jeff, and I know he'd take your money. Now, that's a not exact quote, but you get the idea.
Yeah.
And so in the most famous 8 words in history, I replied, gee, Tom, great to hear from you. Keep me informed. Now, I have to ask you, Joe, and maybe you have a guess, $100,000, 2 weeks into Amazon. How much would that $100,000 have been worth 2 years later in 1997 at the public offering?
20 million?
That's pretty close, 33 million. Yeah, you came closer than most people do when trying to guess that.
Wow.
And hold it for a year, and it doubled, 66 million. So I tell that story all the time, and I just told it to you. I told it in front of some 400 people at an Angel Capital Association annual conference or summit. And I came off stage, and 2 of my friends had their iPads open and tapped me on the shoulder and said, come over here, Dave, let me show you something. And they had calculated what the $100,000 would have been worth since it was 33 million at the offering, you can therefore kind of extrapolate that one. Today, meaning that day, which was 3 or 4 years ago. And yeah, I'm not going to ask you to take a guess, but it was 3.5 billion.
Wow. Oh my.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Could have bought and renamed my university. Who
Yeah,
knows?
certainly. But there's so many moments like that in life, and there's just no way that you can find that crystal ball quick enough to understand the impact. But that's amazing. So, Dave, if anybody wants to get your books, they want to reach out, any of the good business, where's the best place for them to go?
Really easy. Berkus.com. If you see my name in the corner there, Berkus. In fact, I'll invite them to sign up for my weekly emails, which I tell one of these stories, like the kind I've been telling you,
Yeah.
of wild success and then the moral, or unusually quick failure and the moral. And every week a new story, free, by email and the blog. If you'll go to Berkus.com, halfway down the page, you'll be able to sign up.
Okay. I will put all of these links in the show notes. What an absolute honor, Dave. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your wisdom. Thank you for taking a minute out today, and continued success with everything.
Joe, it was fun. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.